Good morning, beautiful people. We get to answer softly because it's morning. I understand. Welcome to Finding Harmony in Distributed Systems, Choreography versus Orchestration. So distributed systems are all around us. Is there anyone who doesn't know what a distributed system is? And it's okay to raise your hand. Thank you. Thank you. It's effectively the transactions you make, the websites you visit. At the heart of these are distributed systems because you could be visiting a game, Pokemon Go, from here, and you would want the same data and the same speed and the same performance as if I was visiting that from Tokyo, Japan. That is made possible through distributed systems. So there are other architectures besides choreography and orchestration. There's client-server models, there's peer-to-peer, although if you were using peer-to-peer in production, you would not get Pokemon Go level performance. And the event-driven, publish, subscribe, service-oriented architecture. This is only about 2 of those architectures and none of the others. I am not saying these are the best, and I am not today going to say which is my favorite choreography, because this is an unbiased talk, and even though I do have an undergrad in dance, I appreciate music very, very much. Let's dive into understanding choreography and orchestration and how they can help us find that elusive harmony in our system. There are a lot of puns, by the way. Lots of puns. So how components or services interact and coordinate their actions is paramount. Let's delve into 2 ways, choreography versus orchestration. So with choreography, imagine a beautiful synchronized dance where every dancer knows their role, knows their part. I am not talking about improvisation, but a well-choreographed, fully structured, very strict choreography versus chaos. I appreciate that too. We can talk about that offline. This is choreography in the software world as well. So there's message passing. If I'm on stage with my fellow dancer, Derek, and I want to make sure that we go at the same time, we might have a breath of message passing, and then we step together. Components or services also communicate with one another independent of a choreographer being on stage. Decentralization is key within choreography, so there's no central orchestrator. There's no one taking the lead. There's no one cueing everyone from off stage. And they're self-managing components. I know my choreography. I know what I'm supposed to do up here on stage. And Derek knows what he's supposed to do on stage. And together we make an amazing dance. He's not really gonna come up here and dance with me. Unless you wanna, and you know. Like. I don't know the choreography. So I've done my poor due diligence at a system administrative level of teaching all my components the choreography for this application. So in orchestration, though, there is a central conductor at the front giving the cues, ensuring the violins, cellos, and trumpets play in harmony. The central orchestrator plays a similar role within software orchestration. So there's a central orchestrator. That person is the leader. They're the ones that say, okay, Derek, you're on. Okay, Rain, you're on. Okay, next, next, next. And components don't move without that person. Yes, in an orchestra, they would go even if the composer was slightly off. But in orchestration, they would wait for my signal. There's a top-down approach because of that. I'm more important than the individual components, theoretically. Not really. I love you all. So there's a top-down approach. And if I don't say go, you don't go. Not quite the same as an orchestra. It also means that there's a single point of failure, theoretically. Of course, we would always put high availability, there would be failure and redundancy, we would back up our databases. But this is the simple outline. In essence, while choreography relies on the intelligence and independence of each service, orchestration relies on the intelligence and dependence on the conductor. So let's get specific. So the first line is the pros, and the second one is the drawbacks. So within choreography, you have decentralization. One of the cornerstones of choreography is that spread outness, that independence. Unlike a central orchestrator in choreographed systems, each service or component is independent. This means if one service goes down, theoretically, I can then help that service on my own, or that service doesn't take down the rest of the dance. If someone doesn't enter the stage, it's okay. You mostly can see what's going on, theoretically. Flexibility within choreography, not just the dancer's flexibility, but the flexibility of the system, means that if I change one of the dancers within the system, it won't necessarily affect anyone else within the system. I theoretically could add and subtract components within the system without affecting too much of the final service or the user experience. I could similarly upgrade different components or replace dancers entirely. And then scalability means that I can perform on a stage of 3, or I could perform on the world stage very easily just by adding components. Scalability is not a problem with choreography. So the drawbacks are twofold, and there are more. We could talk offline if you want to. There's a certain complexity there. When everyone's doing their own thing and there's no leader, choreographed systems are meticulously designed to ensure components interact correctly. So when they don't interact correctly, who's at fault? There's no central authority. So without that central authority enforcing global policies, ensuring consistent interactions and making systemic changes can become more challenging. It sometimes means duplicated efforts between the components or dancers. So while choreography presents a compelling case with flexibility, scalability, and resilience, it's not without its challenges. It's like having a classroom without a teacher. It can work, depending on the age of the components and the discipline. So let's take a look at the kind of applications that might lend themselves better towards, and this is not black and white. Please do not take this as, please don't go out and design a production system based on this black and white talk, grayscale. So microservice architectures tend to be choreographed, tend to have no central system, especially if it's rather large. It might then have several collections of microservices architectures. The Internet of Things tends to be with so many sensors, so much data, so much going on simultaneously that it's more choreographed. For example, if you have a parking system in a parking garage, as you know, you want many parking spots to be able to act independently and register that there's a car in that parking spot, rather than each of them waiting until their neighbor has vacated the spot. Some blockchain setups, financial systems with decentralized ledgers are better choreographed. And this is, we could talk about Web3. offline. Real-time collaborative applications like Google Docs, you want that simultaneous, you want people to simultaneously be able to edit the same document and for them not to block each other. And then ride-sharing platforms tend to be choreographed. Each driver is its own independent person, each rider is their own independent person, and they're communicating chaotically. You wouldn't want one driver to block another driver. Yeah. Can anyone think of another example of a choreographed application or distributed system? It's okay. You can talk to me after if you'd rather not talk out here. All right. Kitchen. A kitchen, yes. Any of the applications where you want several moving parts to happen in parallel rather than be dependent on a single place. So then you might be thinking, okay, then couldn't you use orchestration with a lot of those scenarios? Totally. But there's effectively times when you want someone to be the state machine, the one who is making sure, okay, we've done this, now we go to this, now we go to this. Let's talk about orchestration. So orchestration has predictability. You know what to expect. It's one of the primary benefits. With a central orchestrator, I'm saying go A, go B, go C. It's every service and component knows their role, but not until I say so. This can be crucial in environments where precise sequences and timings are essential. There's a centralized management system. This means that monitoring the health of the system, debugging issues, a lot easier. You can keep track of the orchestrator. There are systems out there that are open source to watch choreograph systems, to monitor and observe choreograph systems. It's a lot easier to watch and observe an orchestrated system because there's a central person you can see the state and where it went wrong. I go B, 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 and I tell the observability system that's where it failed. There's consistency there as well. In a world full of variables, having that consistency in an application in government systems, security systems, banking systems, that's where you have more orchestration systems. So there is a single point of failure, and don't get me wrong, you can totally have an orchestrator and then have a system where if I go down, another orchestrator takes my place. This is assuming that you're doing a pure orchestration. But if I go down, theoretically, all of the musicians stop playing, and you can't start playing again until I come back up. That can be a single point of failure. There is less flexibility here as well. Sometimes changes are complicated, and if I need to change a musician out, I need to tell the orchestrator, or the orchestrator gets very confused. The conductor. See, dance degree, not music. Conductor. So the conductor has to be updated anytime any of these components are updated, and that can be very complicated for an administrator. So we've got structured, centralized approach with predictability and consistency. Let's talk about some typical applications and structures. So who here knows what BPM is? Business Process Management. Yes, yes. Okay, so there's a movement, in case you've never heard of BPM, it's workflows. So let's say someone is hired, they need to be onboarded, their tax paperwork needs to get filled out, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Those are workflows within business. And you can't move forward you can't actually let that person work until they've been onboarded, filled out their tax paperwork, et cetera, verified they can work in the country that they're working from, stuff like that. So business process management tends to be about the logical steps that an application does, rather than the if-then statements of making sure it's secure and stable and up and consistent. So also within a BPM, you might have a withdrawal from a banking system, a transfer from one account to another, and a BPM would make sure that that money was only withdrawn once and only deposited once. And if anything went wrong in between, the BPM would reverse it or credit where that failure happened. So that's what a BPM is. You're welcome. That tends to be an orchestration system where the conductor is the state management system of making sure withdraw the money. Okay, the money is withdrawn. Credit the money. Okay, the money is credited. Done. Supply chain management, where you actually take, I should have turned off my auto power saving, keeps turning off, where you take products and you move them out to a system, out to individuals, out to other companies. You don't want that product to leave the warehouse and for me not to know that it's left the warehouse. You don't want that product to be credited as being delivered somewhere and it's not actually delivered. Or for the customer to cancel that delivery and for me to deliver it anyway. That tends to be. And then, of course, within healthcare, you tend to have orchestration systems because you don't want someone to get the wrong surgery or to receive placenta removal before giving birth. If you don't know what that means or why that's weird, you can find me after. Deployment pipelines in DevOps, CI/CD, this all tends to be orchestration. Data transformation and ETL processes tend to, do you know what ETL is? Extraction, transformation? Okay. It's effectively where you want your data to be consistent and processed, going from a lake to a warehouse. Unprocessed to processed data. You want to make sure that that data is only processed once and that you've put the labels on and it's all sorted, rather than being confused about whether or not something is in one place or another. And then e-commerce, telecommunications, complex multimedia production, all of these tend to be orchestration systems. Does anyone know of another orchestration system? Domino's. Yes, I mean, ordering pizza, literally. It's just like the e-commerce system. You don't want to receive the wrong pizza or no pizza or too much well, maybe you do want to receive too much pizza, but effectively, yes, exactly, Domino's. Love it. Boop. Boop. All right. So when you're deciding between choreography and orchestration, don't just choose because you have a bias towards dance. Rain. It's not a mere toss of the coin. It depends. And I hate to give that answer because that's the answer to everything in tech and life. But it really does depend. You have to think about specific requirements and context. And I'm going to go over 3 of the major contexts, but there are way more than just these 3. So, your system requirements. Do you need predictability or do you need flexibility? And these are not exactly opposites, but with predictability, do you need those workflows and interactions? Are they set in stone? Do you need a clearly defined workflow? With the structured top-down approach, orchestration would be your choice. Or does your system thrive on dynamic interactions, in which case choreography is your choice? What are your scalability needs? How much growth and evolution are you expecting in the next month, in the next year? It's kind of hard for us in tech to think about long-term future solutions because we need to get it deployed right now. But take a minute and think about what kind of scale you're going to need, at least in the short term. So choreography will be advantageous, can be advantageous if you foresee it exploding. If you're a popular gaming developer and you've already had a couple of successful games that you've deployed, your new one is probably going to explode too. So keep that in mind, and maybe you want to go with choreography. On the flip side, with orchestration, scaling might mean reconfiguring all of the components as well as the central orchestrator to accommodate the changes, especially if the system's growth was not anticipated. So management overhead. The central orchestrator management, you have to dedicate some time to the design of the system and the upkeep of the conductor. Centralized system can be simpler to monitor and manage, whereas decentralized system can be more complicated. The orchestrator, where interactions are coordinated, make debugging and monitoring more straightforward. This convenience comes at a cost. Are you willing and able to invest in managing that central coordinator, the central orchestrator, ensuring its availability, updating it, making sure there's backup as the system evolves? It takes more of a commitment with an orchestration system in the face of changes and growth. Okay, seriously, don't flip a coin. Don't forget to drink water. Okay. So in essence, while choreography and orchestration each have their merits, they both have drawbacks, of course. The choice ultimately hinges on your system's needs and future vision. Please don't slice off your future vision because of pressure from the CEO. Take a step back and ponder the factors that will pave the way to a more informed decision. Okay. So beautiful people, as we wind down our exploration day, I want to leave you with some final thoughts. Our world of distributed systems is like a great symphony. Every service, every component plays its unique tune. And while choreography and orchestration offer different methods, both aim for the same goal, balance and harmony. Think of a beautifully composed song. Each note has its place, its moment to shine, and together they create a masterpiece. That's the essence of a well thought out, well-designed, balanced, distributed system. But here's the thing, you are the composers and choreographers. The world of software is vast and varied. What works for one might not work for the other. That's why it's so crucial and vital to stop and think about your needs. What melody do you want your system to play? What dance do you want to see? So here's my call to action to everyone today as you step out, heading back to your teams, your projects, your challenges. Take a moment, breathe, drink some water. Reflect on everything we've discussed, or that I've mostly discussed. Thank you for interacting. Assess your current projects and future endeavors and ask yourself, choreography or orchestration or something else, which will bring out the best harmony in your system. Remember, the power is in your hands. The choices you make will shape the systems of tomorrow. Let's strive to make them efficient, functional, harmonious, and balanced. And with that, let's change the world one distributed system at a time. Any questions? Or no question. That's okay too. You find me after. Thanks.